Welcome to part 15 for our component-based Galaxy Defiance space shooter tutorial series in Godot 4. In this video, we're going to be creating the final enemy, which is the pink enemy. And with that, it'll be a little bit more complicated as far as enemies go, and that's because we will have a state machine for the enemy. And the way that I've set up state machines is using components is a bit experimental. So again, I'm looking for feedback on this. If you have any ideas, let me know. Let's get started. First, let's come into our enemies, and we're going to right click on enemy here, and we're going to do new inherited scene. We're going to call this pink enemy. We'll save it inside of enemies. And we'll start by coming to our animated sprite, creating a new sprite frames, and opening the pink enemy asset here. We're gonna have 1 vertically and 5 horizontally. Select all those, add all the frames. Our on-screen notifier, we can shrink down a bit. I'm gonna turn off snap, although I do want pixel snap on still. And there we go. We'll have the animated sprite autoplay. You can watch it now. It's a little bit slow. Let's bump it up to 10 frames per second. Maybe 8. I don't want it to be too fast. There we go. 8 looks pretty good. Okay. So we've got the pink enemy flying at us. Now we're going to create we're going to add some more components to it here. Now the first thing we need to add is the hitbox and hurtbox. So let's add a hurtbox. So we'll add a collision shape. Since we already have the hurtbox component, we'll just do a circle. And since this one is the hurtbox, we'll leave it a little bit bigger so it's easier to hit the enemy. And then for the hitbox, we'll do a collision shape and we'll do a circle. Oops, don't want to disable it. Do a circle and we'll make it a little bit smaller so easier for the player to avoid this enemy. Okay, now our destroyed component is already set up. Our score component for, let's see, yeah, for the stats, we're going to want to increase the stats. We'll set it to 6 health, so it's significantly harder to kill. We'll give it a score of 20. So we'll click on our score component, set it to 20. Here we go. Save this. Now we're going to set up our states. So just to organize our states in our scene here, I'm going to add a base node and just call it states. This. And yeah, that should be fine. Now we're going to take a look at the state component here real quick, just so we can understand it. So I've set up a state component so that it has enabled, disabled, and state finish signals. So it signals out when it's enabled, it signals out when it's disabled, and it signals out when the state is finished. And it can disable itself and it can enable itself. And when it disables itself, it is going to, by the way that Godot's process mode works is when you disable a node, it also disables all the children, as long as those children are set to process inherited, which is the default. If we click on state here, we come to process. You can see process mode by default is set to inherit. So if we disable a state, it will disable all of the components underneath that state. And that is the basis for how I set up the state system. I have a state node, it has some components under it, and then when I disable that node, it disables all of the components under it and they're no longer running. Let's create a state called a move state. So we're going to click on states. We'll come here and do state component. So we're going to add a state component. Make sure it's not a stat component, but a state component. And we'll call this move down state. Okay? So we've created our move down state component. We're going to need to add a component to the state to move down. And how would we do that? We would add a move component to it. So as a child of our move down state, we'll add a move component. So now we have two move components in the scene, right? We have this one right here. We're not going to do anything with this one though. We're just going to leave it alone. And we have this one right here. Now we could recreate this whole pink enemy using components so that we didn't have to have an extra move component here, because this one will go unused technically. And that's one of the costs of using inheritance, is that sometimes you're creating something and you don't want to inherit from it, and we just can't do that. The only way we could not inherit this is to create a completely new pink enemy, which, since we're using components, we can do that. But I'm valuing the trade-offs here, and I'm saying it's worth it to have a move component that goes unused on our pink enemy rather than recreate this pink enemy with all these components in it. Okay, we'll select our pink enemy here in our move component, and we want to move down, so we're going to set the Y to 15, and that should make our enemy move down. It's actually starting to annoy me that it's playing right now, so I'm going to stop the animation for now. Okay. Now we'll come to, so we've got our state, we've got our move down state, and let's add another state here. So let's click on states. We're going to add a new state component, and we'll call this one move side component. No, move side state. Okay. Now, keep in mind that the way these nodes are ordered here in the hierarchy matters, right? Move down and move side are both children of states, and then move component is a child of move down. So make sure that yours are set up exactly the same. Now we'll click on move side state, and we'll add a new move component as well here. We'll select our pink enemy, and we can set the velocity here to 20 by default, but we're going to set it in code to pick between negative 20 and 20, so it will pick randomly left or right. Now we also want this move side state to bounce off the walls. We're going to add a border bounce component. Border bounce component right here. And since it's a child of this state, it will only run when this state here is enabled. If it's disabled, it won't bounce off the walls. Now, that's not necessarily important. We could add the border bounce to the whole thing, but we don't need to. We only need this to run when we're moving sideways. So this is completely fine to add it here. Select our pink enemy, and we'll select a move component, which is going to be the move component under move side state. Okay, we've got 3 here. Make sure you're selecting the one under move side state. Okay, so now our border bounce component is connected to our pink enemy, and it's connected to this move component. I might call this move side component just to be clear that that's the one for moving side to side. It looks like Godot did update this properly in our border bounce component. Okay, now we're going to create another state right here. And so we'll do a state component again, and we'll call this one fire state. And the fire state is just, well, you know what? We won't add this one yet. In fact, we might split this into 2 videos. So actually delete fire state, and we're going to add a different state. This is going to be a timed state component. Now, a timed state component runs for a certain amount of time, and then it automatically signals out that it was that the state is complete. You could look at the code here. I did add some comments to this. So, but yeah, it simply when you enable it, it starts the timer, and then after the timer is over, it disables itself. So we have this time state component. We're going to call it our pause state. because it's actually not going to have any components underneath it. In fact, I just realized that I messed this up because we actually want our move down state and our move side states to also be timed components. So right click on your move down state, and we're going to do change type, and we're going to change it to a timed state component. And right click on move side state, do change type. Where is it? We're also going to do a timed state component. Some states you won't want them to be timed, but in this case, we want both of these to be timed. We want it to move down for a time, then move to the side for a time, and then pause for a time, and then move down, and then move to the side, and then pause. Okay, so let's set the pause duration to 3 seconds. We'll set the move to the side duration to 3 seconds as well. Uh-oh. Now we've got an issue, which is that even though I changed the state type, it didn't actually work. Okay. Change type didn't work there. It should have. So I think that's a bug. However, there's a workaround for this, which is inside of our file system down here. We have time state component. We can just click on our move state, and it still has the state component script. We'll just drag over time state component like that. There we go. And then for our move state, we'll set it to 2. And then we'll click on move side state. We'll drag over our time state component script, drop it. Now it did manage to change that, and we'll set it to 3 as well. Okay, so now we've got our 3 states, and we're going to select these 3 states. I'm holding control, and I'm going to right click and do access as scene unique name so that we can get access to all of these states inside of our pink enemy script. So let's do that. We'll grab them all, and we'll drag and drop them into our scene. Oops, that didn't work. Try this again. There we go. We'll do as time state component, as time state component. Again, some people are saying that they don't have to do this anymore. It's already giving them autocomplete, but I still seem to have to do it, so I don't know why that is. Okay, so we've got our 3 states set up. Oh geez, I messed up again. Man, I'm kind of having a struggle this morning. Okay, copy these right here. Do Control X and get rid of them. So we drag them inside of the enemy script, which would be bad because enemy, in fact, let's run it. Let's just show you what's going to happen. Okay, we'll run the game, and we're going to get an error message, and that is because the minute it creates an enemy, we do get an error message down here, right? We're getting errors. See these? It can't find those nodes. Why can't it find those nodes? Because we put this code inside of our enemy script, but only the pink enemy has it. So only the pink enemy has those states. So we want to right click on pink enemy and do extend script. There we go. Now we have a script that extends enemy, and we can drag those into here. It says it already exists in the parent class, which isn't true. We just have to save the parent class script so that this can update. There we go. Because I took it out of the parent class, the enemy script. I took it out of the enemy script. I removed them from here, but I hadn't saved yet, and so Godot couldn't tell that I'd removed it because I hadn't saved. Okay, now we have our pink enemy. We can give it a class name. Pink enemy. And we've got our states inside of it. And from here, what we can do is, well, we want to get access to states as well. So I'm going to drag that in here and drop it. we need to do a ready function. Now we're going to call super. Remember what that does? Calling super here is going to make sure that we call the ready function of enemy as well. So we're going to do all these things still. That's when we call super, it will call ready from the parent. Now we're going to say, first thing we need to do is disable all the states. So for state in states dot get children. Now this will loop through each state inside of the states.getChildren, and we can say state.disable. And we don't get autocomplete here, but if we did state equals state as state component, then we could get autocomplete, state.disable, like that. Okay. Now let's also get access to our move side component. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to do access as unique name. We'll drag it into here and we'll do as move component. That's our move side component, and we want to move from side to side, right? So we're going to say move side component dot velocity dot x equals, we'll do an array -20 and 20 dot pick random. This is just like how we made the yellow enemy move from side to side, right? It's the same idea. Okay? And that's in the ready function. Now what we're going to do is we need to connect to the state finished signals on all of our states. So we'll say move down state dot state finished dot connect. And then we're going to connect the finished state for move down to the enable state for move side. So move side state, should you do the state, dot enable. So all we're doing here is we're saying when the move down state is finished, enable the move side state. That would be, oh, we've moved down for 2 seconds. Now start moving to the side. Now we'll say move side state dot state finished dot connect. And we'll say move down state dot enable. No. Let's see. Move side state finished. We want to do move. We want to do our pause state. Pause state dot enable. There we go. Now we'll say pause state dot state finished dot connect, and we'll say move down state dot enable. And you can see we're just setting up a loop where when the move down state is finished, we start the move side. When the move side state is finished, we start the pause. And when the pause state is finished, we start the move down. So it loops back up to move down again. And then lastly, we just want to say move down state dot enable. And we're actually going to call it this time, and that will enable the move down state and start the loop that we just created. So let's go to our world here. Let's delete. Not delete, but close a lot of these scenes here. We'll come into world. I'm just going to add the pink enemy to our world here, and we can make sure that our code is all set up and working correctly. It should move down for 2 seconds, then move to the side, and then it will pause. And then it will move down for 2 seconds, then it will move to the side, and then it will pause. There you go. And you can see how easy it would be to set up different states just by adding components underneath that state and then enabling the state and disabling the state. And we're just using signals to enable the state. When the state is finished, it automatically disables itself. So it disables itself and then it calls finished. But that's something that you'll want to keep in mind, is that we are disabling the state. It's actually inside of the timed state. So you can see our timer here. When the timer times out, it signals state finished and it disables itself. That's how it works. Okay, that's going to be it for this video. It's already getting kind of long, so I'm going to end up splitting this one into splitting the pink enemy into 2 videos here. Hopefully you learned something, found this interesting. Let me know if you have any comments about this setup in the comments below. If you like the video, like it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, you can check out my Godot courses. There's a link in the description for those, and I will see you all in the next video.